The views on this program do not reflect those of ONTV or its board of directors. Welcome to OAA Now, your home for Oakland Activities Association news and information. Here's your host, Sammy Taramina. Hey, another Monday. It is the, 25th of January, the last Monday of January 2021 already. Ian Locke here, OAA Now. It's a little gloomy out, a little gray, a little cold, just what January should be, but we're rolling into February not too long. Just next week, before we get kicking off on bring Sammy in here. He's on the line. I'd like to give a promo real quick for the ONTV Food and Fun Drive for Fish, our 11th annual. It's coming up next week, and it's a GoFundMe. So if you hit orientontv.org and donate to the food pantry here, we're looking to raise $5,000 for our food pantry here in North Oakland County. It's Oxford, Addison, Oakland Township, and Lake Orion. So the food drive's coming up. And it's time for, we've got some good news out of West Bloomfield. Something happened over the weekend, Sammy.
Yeah, somebody took home a state championship. West Bloomfield, they took home their first ever state championship. Blew out Davison 41-0.
Shocker.
Well, it was a stunner.
But hey, what were they missing?
You look at Davison, with Davison, they didn't have Brendan Sullivan.
Yep, their quarterback.
And then they took a huge loss in the first quarter when Harrison Unger, their tight end / star defensive player, got hurt with a hamstring injury in the first quarter. He did not return to that game. But the story was obviously Donovan Edwards. He had 14 carries for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns.
He could have had more.
That was the third most rushing yards in state history.
For a championship game.
Yeah, for a championship game. Yeah. And that was insane. And then Makai Elam had a really good game. He had a touchdown as well. Linebacker Niles King in the third quarter basically took the football away from a Davison player's hands and went for a touchdown.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Edwards basically took over. Jake Ward played a really nice game. He made two field goals, a 39-yarder and a 45-yarder.
Yeah. To
make it 41-0, and that's just insane. West Bloomfield, we've seen this all year long from them. Just since the loss to Clarkston, this team has really been on a mission. Been just dominant. Haven't lost a game. Donovan Edwards became, like a household name, and he's going to be forever be known as in the lore of West Bloomfield. To be probably one of the greatest players, probably if the greatest player to come out of West Bloomfield.
Ever to come through there.
Yep, to ever come through there.
And something I saw too, it was, it was just systematic. It was the defensive front for the Lakers. When I was watching, there was no stopping them. They were in the backfield. They were pressuring. It's tough for them to have, a backup quarterback in there, but he equated himself pretty well. He stood in the pocket. He took those hits. He got back up, and he kept fighting. I said, but that defensive front for West Bloomfield was something special.
And here's the thing. Davison had an experienced lineup. When you really look at it, Davison, let's not forget, besides Unger, they had players on that line. You have Will Watkins up front. You have 2 very good running backs in Carter Kretterman, Travion Warren, and then a good receiver, Jalen Flowers. I think even if Brendan Sullivan did play in that game, I still think Davison had no chance in this game. West Bloomfield was on a clear mission. They were the dominant team that night at Ford Field. They were the dominant team on that Saturday afternoon. Davison really had no chance in that game against West Bloomfield.
They didn't have an answer for him, that's for sure. And do you think it was the perfect game at the perfect time for West Bloomfield?
Yes, I do. I think
because they looked just sharp right out of the gate. They were ready to go. They were.
I'm gonna tell you this. The reason why West Bloomfield won the game is I'm going to say scheduling helped them because you look at the teams West Bloomfield played and you look at the teams that Davison has played. West Bloomfield, they play in the vaunted red. Let's not forget, you're dealing with Clarkston, Oxford, Lake Orion, Southfield. I mean, like on a consistent basis. And then with Davison, you're playing Lapeer, Grand Blanc. You know, those are two really tough teams you have in the Saginaw Valley, and then everybody else is just not very good. I mean, Davison really hadn't been tested all year long. They really had it. They've blown everybody out. Whereas West Bloomfield has had to battle Clarkston. They were tested for sure in the playoffs by Belleville. So West Bloomfield clearly, to me, was the more battle-tested team than Davison, and it showed in this game.
And the previous game, you know, the semifinals against Belleville for the Lakers, boy, was that, I mean, that was almost the de facto championship game in a way with the quality of teams, because it's like whoever came out of that was they were going to storm to a championship. It just felt that way.
Sure. I mean, like, when you look at what happened in that game, I mean, West Bloomfield, I do question Belleville's coaching decisions. You know what I mean? Going for 2 in that field goal last week, we questioned that.
Yeah.
But for West Bloomfield, they were on a mission. And, you know, they said it themselves that if they were going to get to a state championship game and win a state title, they would have to go through Belleville. Yeah. And they ended up going. I think, to me, that was West Bloomfield's biggest test, was when they went into Belleville, won that game in double overtime. Edwards went nuts in that game. I thought it would have been a low-scoring game. I mean, like, man, was I wrong. I mean, like, in that state championship game against Davison. But,
yeah, well, we both said it was about 10 points. We thought it'd be about 10.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that game against Belleville really was the one that turned things around. And, you know, for West Bloomfield, that's really huge. So for West Bloomfield, you know, for them to win it all, you know, I'm really happy for Coach Ron Bellamy. Really happy for the kids out there in West Bloomfield. Especially for the community and that school off Orchard Lake Road. I mean, it's a job well done for West Bloomfield. The job is finished. You know what I mean? So
it definitely was a process, right? I mean, if you go back to where they came from to where they are now, I mean, it's night and day. I mean, they you know, when they used to come into town, it may have been, you know, oh, hey, it's a quality OA opponent. You got to watch out for them. But it's now it's turned into, oh, geez, they're coming into town. West
Bloomfield in 2014, that's when you notice everything starts to change. I know there was a lot of pressure on Coach Bellamy from 2009 to 2013. It was a struggle for them. 2014 was when everything started to change for that team. And I think, and to be honest with you, I thought it started when West Bloomfield went into Lake Orion and shut them out. That's when I felt everything started to change for that program, and it turned everything around. When the Lakers went into Lake Orion that day in 2014 and just shut out the Dragons and blew them out 38-0. I remember that game really well, and I said to myself, okay, West Bloomfield's going to be, they're getting better. I mean, they're improving each week. And this is where they got, you know.
They got to the mountaintop and celebrated as they should, and you know, led by another now legendary running back, right? And he's moving on to U of M. Is it? Should I run the music for breaking news?
Yes.
I mean, is it?
Yeah, you can do the breaking news story.
I know it's probably, for those of you listening, the OAA Now nuts out there listening to this podcast every week, you've probably heard, because you're in the know, what's going on over there now, Sam.
Yeah, Ron Bellamy is now is going to be leaving West Bloomfield. He is going to take over as an assistant at Michigan under Jim Harbaugh's staff. So when you look at Michigan, so this is a really tough loss for West Bloomfield. Going into,
anytime you lose a championship coach, it's tough to replace them. And, obviously, where are they looking? It's just like now we're having conversations about West Bloomfield like we had a couple other teams in the OAA over the last several years with the coaching changes.
Yeah, and then he just wrote a statement early this morning. I put it on the blog at sammy@blogspot.com, writing "Thank you, West Bloomfield." And he wrote this: 12 years ago, God sent me to West Bloomfield to do his work. The West Bloomfield community welcomed my wife and I with open arms. My kids were born immediately became part of a program. West Bloomfield High School and the community. I became a better man, husband, father, and coach because of the experiences I gained throughout my time at West Bloomfield. I am forever grateful for my experiences, the good times and the not so good times that have helped me mold me into a better teacher, mentor, and coach. Thank you to all the players, coaches, and amazing medical teams who have dedicated their time to help put West Bloomfield on the map as a state powerhouse in football. Special thanks to our parents who trusted me with their kids. It's a huge commitment, and I hope I made you proud. Lastly, I would like to thank the leaders of West Bloomfield for the love and support that have been delivered every year. I've always leaned on my faith, and sometimes you had to make the tough decisions. This past weekend has been very special for my family and I. Many tears were shed because it has always been about love. I will forever be a Laker. L-Boys for life.
Yeah. Great.
That's pretty much what it was.
Great letter. And every word of it is honest and true. He's that kind of guy. He's that kind of coach. And it's odd to think that Coach Bellamy won't be around next year because, I don't know about you, Sam, but watching this team as they developed, I know they're losing some key players, but they are solid for next year. And couldn't you see them? I mean, they could be on track to, defending this thing.
Yeah, and they got a lot coming back. Let's not forget. I mean, this team's got Dylan Tatum, Amir Herring, Michael Williams, Samaj Morgan, Brandon Davis-Swan, Burchell Rankin, Xavier Mitchell, Malik Mathena, DeAndre Hill, Xander Davis, Caden Tucker, and Ryan Ross. They got Courage, and then they got a couple very good players come back. I mean, Kari Jackson and Kyle Johnson, and then Raquez Nance, the freshman quarterback who played. He led West Bloomfield's junior varsity team to an undefeated season. So when you really look at the situation with the Lakers, I mean, this team, you're right. This team is built for the long haul. So, it wouldn't surprise me if it would not surprise me that West Bloomfield would be a state powerhouse. I mean, will be a state power for years to come. It wouldn't surprise me. You know what I mean? And the fact that they got a lot coming back, the freshman class, I mean, this is going to be a very interesting situation, how that's going to unfold when you look at West Bloomfield.
Yeah, and I have no doubt if you see them on your schedule next year, the knees will be shaken. I mean, you know that they're going to be good. Having that, like you said, Sam, over and over again, when you have the lower ranks, the sub-varsity football quality and the team and the players, the system in place, and the support of the community and the support of the school, and when you see that support and success at the lower levels, especially at a high level, if you go undefeated in the JV ranks and it comes up through the varsity ranks, you're going to get quality kids that are in this system, and it's just a machine that keeps perpetuating itself. It's like Clarkston. You got a machine. Mm-hmm. Lake Orion for a nice period of time there. They were a machine just churning out these kids, and they are back, right? Mm-hmm. So it's that the Lakers are going to maintain. It's just going to be, what is it going to look like? What changes are there going to be? And do you think they're going outside or staying inside?
I think for them, obviously, staying inside will be very important. West Bloomfield's a team that, they've got a system in place. You know what I mean? If you go with an assistant, like Coach Bryce or Zach Gilbert, it would make perfect sense for this team. Gilbert does have previous coaching experience coaching in girls basketball. So when you look at the fact of the matter is with West Bloomfield, it makes sense for them to it makes sense. So
yeah.
For West Bloomfield, I mean, like, bottom line is, the Lakers are a team that they're built for the long haul. And you do have key returning players coming back, obviously, in Dylan Tatum, who I think is going to be huge for this team going forward. You got a very good freshman class coming in as well. I mean, like, you got Raekwon Dance ready to take over for West Bloomfield. I mean, like, this team is perfectly set, for the future. You know what I mean? They got a running back in there. They got a couple very good linemen coming in there. Got a good wide receiver, Samaj Morgan, next year. I mean, this team's going to be very good next year. I mean, whoever the new coach is, I think most likely this team's going to go in-house. When you look at the hire that, when you look at the football program, because Bellamy built that program into a perennial power. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens and what direction West Bloomfield goes forward with their new head coach.
Yeah, I think they're going to stay in-house too. I mean, when you have, like you said, when you have a system in place, you don't necessarily want to overhaul everything and start from scratch, right? And that's the potential if you go outside. Any new coach is going to bring their philosophy if they wanted to change things around. But I know one thing: if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And don't break it to change.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean? And I think that's the that's the thing. I mean, bottom line is this. I mean, I think that I think at the end of the day, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the bottom line is this: West Bloomfield really, they earned this championship. Now they join the ranks of Clarkston, Lake Orion, Oxford, Adams, and Troy to all win state championships within the OAA, for football. So.
Which is just
and Harrison, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that is just a very that statistic, or at least the names you rattle off there, and how many have won those state titles over the years is, I mean, comparing it to what other league can say. I mean, that they rattle off such a variety of teams and programs have taken the state title in football. I can't think of one. Maybe on the west side, possibly.
Well, you've had Rockford. You've had Novi Detroit Catholic Central in the Catholic League. The Catholic League's been always been very good. The McCune Area Conference has been very good as well. So when you look at the situation around the OAA has been really an elite conference, and especially being in the red. I mean, considering how everything's been this whole season, obviously when you look at the situation, how it's been.
I mean, schedule-wise?
Schedule-wise, yep. I mean, like, bottom line is, the OA, when you're playing a quality opponent every week, especially in the red, when you look at where West Bloomfield had to go, they had to play Clarkston, Lake Orion, Oxford, Southfield. Then you had to play Adams during the season. I mean, like, it gets you prepared for the postseason. I mean, like, you look at West Bloomfield's past this year in the playoffs. They blew out Utica Ford, blew out Troy. Then blew out Belleville. I mean, like, and then of course had that incredible game with Belleville. Blew out Romeo, and then they had that incredible game with Belleville, and then at least, and then of course that game against Davidson. So
yeah.
So I think being in the red, being in the OA for West Bloomfield, really helped them. I mean, in place. I mean, like, so the bottom line is, it is. I mean, like, West Bloomfield, I think being in the OA really helped them.
Yeah.
And let them to the state championship.
Yeah, and for our listeners out there, Sammy and you too, we got a couple audio issues going this morning, so you're Your phone's cutting in and out just slightly every once in a while, and then we got this little hum. So I apologize for the hum and this little buzz going on here. So it feels like a Monday for sure.
Yeah, it
things
does.
that never happened before all of a sudden happen as soon as you go on and start recording your podcast with your guests. So anyway, okay, so that's that. They won it. We saw it coming.
They won it.
Right? They now enter the ranks of the state title holders in the OAA.
Yeah. Now Bellamy's out now. Adam West Bloomfield, unfortunately, it's sad.
And with Bellamy gone, I think they didn't really stipulate what his job was going to be at the U of M. It's to be determined.
The wide receivers coach there. I think he's going to be the wide receivers.
You think so? Because I heard too that they're making some other changes, and rumor has it, so it could be wide receivers, but I also heard something that it could be special teams.
That's possible.
But who knows? So, but anyway, he's moving on up into better things, and I'm glad we had a chance to speak with Coach this season, before anything got underway, and he's always so generous to you and to the show here at OAA Now with comments and interviews and that sort of thing. So we're gonna miss him greatly, not only selfishly on the show, but also in the coaching ranks of the OAA.
And of course, Football Media Day, and Football Media Day and all that. I mean, we're gonna miss him dearly. So, we're gonna see what happens going forward. You know what I mean? So, we're gonna see what happens going forward.
Yep. All right. So, we had some news that we thought athletics were going to get underway.
The
winter sports. It's coming back. Practice is underway. The state said, okay, competition can begin on the first week of February. All of a sudden, they pumped the brakes and
moved it back to the 21st. And I just read online here, with being at home, I just read a statement from the Michigan Health and Human Services responding to the calls for the return of winter sports. This is what they said, and I am just really sickened by this, but here it is right here. We are pleased to continue incredibly reopening the economy with the recent MDHS order. Counties across the country have faced large outbreaks of COVID-19 associated with sports teams. In Michigan, there were 42 outbreaks associated with athletics. K-12 schools, I'm just reading your statement that they just released. Professional, collegiate, and commercial venues in August and September 2020 before restrictions on contact sports were implemented, and the MDHHS and local health departments are still identifying outbreaks on teams that are currently playing. Outbreaks of this magnitude had the potential to affect not just the sports team, but the community in which players and the coaches reside as well. Sports that require frequent closeness between players make it more difficult to prevent disease transmission compared to sports where players are not as close to each other. The risk of COVID-19 transmission is increased by the number of individuals and a player physically interacts with, as well as the intensity and duration of that interaction. The arrival of the new B1117 variant also means even more caution must be taken so we avoid the rapid rise in cases, hospitalizations, deaths that other countries have seen in this variant have experienced. So we talked about that earlier on. They wrote more as well. Even with mitigation measures in place, such as wearing a mask, disease transmission cannot be completely prevented when players have prolonged or intense contact. Contact sports include the following: football, basketball, rugby, field hockey, soccer, lacrosse, wrestling, hockey, boxing, futsal, and martial arts with opponents. These risks are even greater for indoor contact sports where there are not natural ventilation to mitigate the close proximity of participants. Teams that can implement robust public health measures may be able to decrease the risk, but the risk remains elevated. We will continue to carefully watch the data to assess what other activities can be permitted. We are laser focused on achieving our goal of vaccinating at least 70% of Michiganders age 16 and up as quickly as possible so we can end this pandemic and get back to a source of normalcy.
Okay, so before we went on the air, Sam, so a lot of you guys listening might not know, but we chat for a good while before we go on the air to talk about topics, and this came up because we're trying to figure out what was the deal. Why did they all of a sudden delay it after saying that it's going to kick off on the 1st of February and we're going to get underway? The schedules were made. We're ready to go. And my question was, over the weekend, what did we hear about U of M sports? They've been shut down. The whole athletic department at the University of Michigan has been shut down for 14 days because that new variant from the UK is on campus. And so they have to lock it down, even though, let's say, they may not have positive tests or COVID tests coming back, but out of precaution, because this is so new. We don't know much about it. And of course, this is going to happen just when the high school sports season's going to kick off underway. And after reading this, it's like, or after you reading that, I appreciate you digging that up. I should have run the breaking news music, because that is breaking news, Sam, is that it's directly related to this new variant. And if it wasn't around, I think we'd be okay. But I think this is one of those pump the brakes. They're not sure what they're dealing with yet, and they have to make sure, because as we heard in the UK over the weekend, at least I did, I'm not a newsman, but you reading up on this, they said that it's a potential that the current vaccines may not work on this new one as well as the COVID-19 we've been dealing with all along.
This is what makes this hard, because the fact that the MHA, went through this testing program, and they had a 99.8% positive, negative test rate. And then earlier on in the previous weeks, it was a 99.6% testing rate. You're seeing kids go on Twitter begging Governor Whitmer for them to let them play. The fact that this decision now, this response from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, what this does, and I think this is going to open up Pandora's box, and I think this is a very, very dangerous scenario for the four-contact sports. And
we talked about using the word dangerous, Sam. Let's use another one, because danger is legitimate in our society now with a virus. This is recreational activity and that sort of thing. I would rather use pain in the neck as opposed to dangerous.
This is more of a pain in the neck, and I think when you look at the situation, how the fact that you've had so many people respond, and to me, this is going to maybe increase some people's displeasure of the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Even with the new virus.
Even with the new variants. Even with the new virus. So when you look at the statement they released, I'm very disappointed that Governor Whitmer's office and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services didn't reach out to the MHA when they explained this decision. If they would have said, okay, reach out to them, instead of going through this with having the 9:30 a.m. press conference, and the fact of the matter is you have, out of the entire country right now, out of all 50 states, 48 of them are playing basketball right now. And the two states that are not playing basketball right now are Michigan and Hawaii. And to me, that is it is risky, but for the mental health and the emotional sake of these kids, these kids have proven that they can get sports done safely. And you see the evidence clearly. Football was done safely despite it was indoors. Swim and dive, that was done safely indoors. Volleyball, that was done safely indoors. So when you look at
but those sports are apples and oranges because they're considered non-contact. I think at the beginning of this whole football is, but it's outdoors. It is outdoors. But the thing too is, at the beginning of this whole thing, didn't they have basketball as a non-contact initially?
Basketball.
They said it was a low risk, which I thought was crazy.
Basketball really deemed a moderate risk. And I don't understand.
Moderate risk.
Yeah, I don't understand why the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services ranked this as a high-risk sport instead of a moderate risk sport. I mean, because we've seen people, this is going to really open up. I mean, because now you got club sports calling for kids. You got prep schools calling for kids. I mean, you look at, and there was a Detroit News article recently about, what Pat Donnelly's been going through, the head coach at UD Jesuits. He might not come back to the school. You know what I mean? Because of this situation. You look at players, like Fletcher Lawyer. Of course, he transferred out, to play basketball. He went to transfer to Indiana. I mean, this is gonna open up the door for a lot of kids to possibly leave the state and go to other states just to play basketball.
But let's be realistic about it. How many kids are at the level of a Fletcher Lawyer or others that would actually traverse across state borders to play basketball? That number's got to be very small. I mean, we're talking handfuls.
It's very small. It's very small. But when you look at, of course, from the AAU circumstances and all this, the AAU circumstances, I'll tell you, they don't subside by state rules. I mean, when you look at the MHA, what they have to go through. So when you look at the situation here, what the NDHHS just said recently, I mean, this doesn't make you feel very good. I mean, especially if you're a contact sport, in a sport that has contact sports like basketball, wrestling, cheer, and hockey. I mean, this really doesn't, it just tells you, that it's very unfortunate, you know what I mean, but I think, to me, the governor, the DHS office, they gotta work more better with the MHA, I think, personally.
I completely agree with that statement. To not even at least alert them. I mean, why say you can do one thing and then immediately flip the script? But again, the reason I know that in some ways is that this new variant wasn't even here yet.
No,
and now you have it. Now you have it in Ann Arbor, and if it's in Ann Arbor, it's in other places. So you got to get this thing corralled, or you're going to have nothing. I mean, there will be nothing, no practice. So the good thing, I'm trying to be positive about this, is that, yeah, competition is cut, right? It's not scheduled yet. They're going to have to reschedule it all. There's still plans to have it, so it's delayed. Practice is still going on, right? I mean, they didn't cancel practice, correct?
Right, they haven't canceled practice.
Right, so practice is going on. My son's running cross country.
But this opens up the door for AAU programs to go after these kids. And what the statement read from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services clearly now enforces those kids to say, you know what, I don't, I said, you know what, I'm gonna go and play club ball with club ball and play AAU ball. You know what I mean? This clearly, what the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services said, basically just opens up the door for these kids to say, you know what, I'm gonna go out there and play. I mean, because I am so fed up with my governor, with my health department. This is gonna create a rift, and I think it's gonna force kids out of the state, unfortunately.
I don't know if they're going to be leaving in droves out of the state, but I agree with you about the AAU and the club sports side of things, that you may see kids just saying, well, I'm not playing high school sports this year because there aren't any, or they're going to be delayed.
Especially if you're a senior.
Yeah, and here's the question. It's like, if, let's say you get an outbreak at an AAU situation, you can't tell me they're not going to shut those guys down too?
Well, the thing with AAU is AAU can be played in different states. I mean, so basically when you look at, that's why you see kids going to Indiana, going to Ohio, going to Wisconsin, so basically what I'm saying here with Governor Whitmer here and Michigan Department of Health and Human Services is, you got to trust these kids. You got to trust these kids. And yes, I know the variant is there, and yes, the variant's there. But the problem that I have is, where's the transparency between the MHA and where is the transparency with the governor's office? So,
Yeah.
the transparency, there's clearly no transparency between the governor's office and the MHA, and it clearly showed, what I mean?
Well, not only does it clearly show, but the executive director said it.
Yeah.
Right? He said he had a report, and I don't know if it was he didn't write an op-ed or anything like that, but he talked to reporters, and I saw it on my news feed, and actually I think it was a national news feed because I didn't realize that 48 of the 50 states are actually playing basketball, and Michigan was one of the ones not. And so when he had a statement. Somebody asked him, he said, we weren't consulted. Nobody said a thing. We had the schedules ready to go. And then, boom, they slammed the door. It seems like they would have, in the middle of all this, of them getting, February 1st is kind of the jumping off point of back to normalcy, normalcy if they knew something in advance that, no, man, we're kicking it back another 2 weeks or whatever it is. It seems like they would have said something to the organization that it's impacted.
Well, why didn't they consult the MHA on this? Because now you're going to likely see a protest come Saturday, obviously. I've been hearing a lot about that. To me, you see the result, you know what I mean? Sorry, that sports can be done safely. I mean, the fact of the matter is that if the MDHHS were to go with this new order, they should have consulted the MHA first. They should have done that. Instead, they went on their own and basically did this without anybody noticing. That's the fault of the state. That's the fault of Whitmer and her administration.
Yeah, I agree with how do you're impacting a large organization, a large number of people, and not to even let them know ahead of time that this was coming down the line. That just doesn't smell good. But it is what it is. It's here, right? So that's not the press conference, right? Is the press conference going on currently, or was that just a press release?
That was from Friday. I mean, they sent out a press release. DHHS sent out that press release.
All right. But you said today about 1:30?
1:30, Governor Whitmer, the new executive director Haskell and Calhoun are going to talk at 1:30. But to me, this just to me, what the DHHS statement today really, my thoughts on this was just, I'm just sick to my stomach for these kids. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, they feel, and these are going to be the future voters, you know what I mean? And we don't know when the Whitmer's up for re-election in 2022. So, just imagine how they would feel, you know what I mean? If, just imagine how they would feel. I mean, there's been we're seeing other states that have higher cases, like Illinois, New York, California. They postpone their seasons, but they have a start date. I mean, Michigan, on the other hand, does not. I mean, when people...
Well, we thought we did. Thought we had a start date.
We thought we did. I mean, now they've extended it to the 21st. I mean, and to me, I don't know how you're going to have a season, for these kids. I don't know how.
Well, but Sam, I'm looking at this going, okay, let's see what the 21st brings. In all reality, the February, I even say the February 1st start date, launch date. I mean, I'm completely discarding that. But going back 2 weeks, when we're like, okay, we're ready to go, competition can begin. I mean, we were supposed to have a game last week, right?
Yes.
And so, having that said, looking at what they put together was so ambitious and so, in my opinion, as a parent of an athlete, right, that plays high school sports, I thought it was a bit odd. It was a bit ambitious, a bit too much, where you actually they're trying to fit a regular season under normal conditions into 6 weeks. And that, to me, I thought was a bit odd. I mean, the MHSAA and the OAA and these other conferences have proven in the fall that you can modify, you can cut back a little bit to be cautious and still have a robust season, one that is fulfilling for the kids and the fans. We can do the championship games. We just wrapped them up. They were on hold. They've proven they can do it. For the next startup, if it's on the 21st, I'm hoping that the MHSAA does not say, okay, let's cram 80 games into 2 weeks or 3. You know what I mean? It should go to, hey, let's set up a season where you're playing your conference games. You get a season of some sort. You can have your conference championships. You can have the state finals and get out of Dodge, because it looked like a regular schedule the MHSA was throwing at everybody, and I just thought it was too much personally. I know you loved it. I mean, as a sports fan, I loved it, but as a parent going, man, this is crazy. So it's going to leak into the spring season somewhat. But don't you think they're going to have to pare this back? They cannot have, in 6 weeks, they cannot have a full season that you would have over, let's say, 10, 12 weeks.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I get, we talked about this maybe a couple months ago, that it would not have surprised me if they would move the spring toward the end of July, toward July. So I think, and then when you look at spring sports, obviously baseball, softball, track and field, you can socially distance, obviously, when you look at the MHA, when you look at, I can see them moving the season back, but the fact of the matter is now that the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services just sent maybe in their press release to me, this looks like a nail in the coffin, and it does, so.
I don't know if it's a nail. I mean, I can hear the caution, and, we've seen the MHSA in these schools and ADs being very flexible, right? We've seen them flex. If anything, the fall proved that it can be done. It can be done safely. And Sammy, I hate to cut you off, but look back to just before we launched sports, before practice began, right? It was delayed. School is delayed. Practice was delayed back in September, August, right? It was all delayed. And what was the mantra then? No fans in the stands.
Yeah, no fans.
Right? So they're all saying, hey, you can get 2 people in the stands per player. Indoors, it's like, cut it out. I mean, no fans. If you want to play, you want that competition, you want to get it done, no fans. I think that's one way. They have to revisit that. There's a lot of systems in place now, like ONTV, CMN, all those guys, plus other systems that the MHSAA has put up for these schools to install in their buildings to allow these games to be streamed live at little or no cost.
Yeah,
so the viewers can see them, but the viewers can see it. But the problem is that these kids want to play. You know what I mean? They want to play. I mean, and if you have games with no fans, fine. You know what I mean? Maybe 2 per guest, fine. I mean, I'd say no fans.
Or no fans. I mean, no fans or your parents. I mean, but to me, this whole thing, the statement the NBA just made just about before. I mean, even when we were doing pod today, I just don't understand it. You know what I mean? I just it's so hard to famine right now with what everything's been going on.
Well, for me, I understand it. I have a kid. I don't want him to get sick.
Yes.
I don't want him to get this new variant. And because I don't know what the heck it is. We're not doctors. We don't know either. And we're being inconvenienced. And this goes to other things, too. It's like, yeah, I'm inconvenienced. I want this. I want that. People are not used to being told, no, you can't have this or can't have that. And
I think not used to restrictions, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Lockdown in March.
Exactly. And you don't want to go back to that where they send everybody home and you're locked up. Kids are going back to school. I just dropped my son off today. He's in person. Other school districts are doing the same. He's practicing with his team after school. And you're right. On the mental health thing, we've talked about it, 1,000 times. The mental health is important. But what I'm looking at is practice is still going on. They're still prepping. They're still getting that interaction with their teammates. They're just missing the race. They're just missing the game.
Athletics is part of the it's part of a school setting. It's part of the classroom. You know what I mean? Lake Orion Public Address Announcer Roger Smith even says this. You know, school athletics that it's part of the classroom. You know what I mean? You know, like playing athletics is being part of the classroom.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know we're not going to solve this problem or find answers. This is the type of discussion you have when you're going, what is going on? I'm trying to be positive, saying, hey, man, the kids are in practice. They're in school. As long as we stay safe and wear these masks and listen, they can continue to go to school in person. They can continue to practice. And then we're just waiting for that day when they say, okay, good, go race. Go have that game. Go have that competition.
But, you know, when you look at spring sports, you know, you look at, of course, baseball, softball, track and field, you can obviously social distance. You know what I mean? You can obviously social distance. And, you know, and those sports, you know, which I felt, in my opinion, even though we had the shutdown in March, that they could have been played. You know what I mean?
But March, dude, that was a completely different beast because we didn't even know what we're dealing with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many unknowns then. Now we have a known. We got a vaccine kicking around that if we can nip this variant in the bud and just keep it isolated, I know it's almost impossible to do, but at least to keep it at bay while people are getting the vaccine for the normal COVID-19, that is going to help everything, right? So
yeah.
I'm cautiously optimistic about it, that with the vaccines kicking around. I don't want to even get started on my displeasure with how the states handled the COVID vaccine rollout. It's just it's unbelievably, in my opinion, poor, and that is the problem. It's like, we can get this vaccine to these kids or those who need it the most. My wife's a school teacher. She's going to work every day, you know, stressed out. They're going, man, I don't want to pick this up and bring it home to my family. So we're waiting for a shot for her, but it's just one of those things where sometimes the bigger problems in life kind of take over from competition. But I'm just happy that my son can get out there, run with his buddies. He already seems happier just from the 3 practices he's had. And, you know, if that's how we're going to go for a while, I'm okay with it. You're right about the communication between the state and the MHSAA. It's horrible. You should have more stakeholders, have somebody from the MHSAA board or the directors sitting in, you know, at least allowed in to listen to what's going on, to offer some suggestions, or at least be alerted that this is coming down the line. Because you're right, this is where the frustration comes in with the lack of communication. It's just a pain in the neck. I mean, we could talk about this forever, Sam. We're at about 47, about 48 minutes in. Do you want to do anything about a basketball preview show? I'd like to end on a positive note. Do we have anything positive we can chat about? Because this stuff riles you and I both up, and I know the listeners get kind of. I'm sure it's riling them up because if they're sports fans. What positives can we talk about?
What positives can we talk about? I mean,
find some.
That's what makes this really hard. I mean, this one makes it really hard. I mean, we could talk basketball, you know.
Let's talk basketball. I mean,
let's talk basketball.
It's going to happen. These guys are in the gyms. They're practicing. These players are going. So hit me with some positive basketball. We got about 10 minutes.
Let's go girls first. I mean, let's go girls first. I mean,
all right.
Obviously, West Bloomfield, they're going to be really good this year. They got a lot of experience back, a lot of proven experience back. And I think when you look at West Bloomfield, you know, they got a lot back from that team that lost to Heartland last year in the semifinal. You got players like Logan Lewis back. You got of course, you got the Elam. I mean, so it'll be very interesting to see what West Bloomfield has. And then, of course, they got the Davis sisters this offseason. So it'll be really interesting to see what West Bloomfield has. Clarkston is my other team I'm keeping an eye on. When you look at what they got a lot of experience back. Manny Sikorsky's back. They got, among others, as well. I mean, that's a team to watch. Grove's new coach and Antoine Simpkins. They got some experience back. I'm a little concerned about their lack of size inside. Royal Oak, Sarah Sorgahan. You basically watch Batman and Robin with Royal Oak this year. Who's going to be Robin this year with Sorgahan playing the role of Batman? And then of course, and then you have South A&T new coaching staff there. You got some players back. Jalen Austin's a player to keep an eye on. Keanu Willis is another one to watch as well. I mean, that's going to be a young team, though, at A&T, replacing a lot of talent there.
That's an understatement, Sam.
Mm-hmm. In the white, we got Troy. They got a lot back for new coach Julius Porter. Kendall Zider. You look at Lauren Gumma, Charlotte Sobaka. They got Kayla Knight. I mean, I think Troy clearly is the favorite in the white. Stony Creek is my number 2 right now. A lot of experience back. Sydney Prairie. Got Devin Valve there. I'm curious to see how Mia Carson's going to be as a full-time point this year. I'm very curious to see what Stony Creek has there. Adams is my 3rd-ranked team right now in that division. A lot of experience back. Of course, Evan Magdalinga. And then, of course, you have North Farmington's going to be very young this year, but I think North Farmington will be very interesting to keep an eye on. Bloomfield Hills, whole new staff, a lot of turmoil surrounding that program over there. A lot of questions over there surrounding Bloomfield Hills. And the blue, Lake Orion, one of the favorites, I think, this year for Coach Bob Bridges.
Really?
Megan Marshall back. Yep, Megan Marshall's back. Sophomore class, very strong. Kylie Heck, you got Maddie Ebert there back as well. I mean, Katie Van Heck in the interior. A lot of questions. Lake Orion's be a team to watch in that blue this year. Rochester's another team to watch as well. Phil Thurston did a really good job putting a program in place there. And then you have and then of course you have Berkeley. Berkeley's a team to watch. Ashley Loon is definitely a guard to watch. She spent some time during the summer in the Philippines. So Loon's another one to watch. Julian Gomes is another one to keep an eye on for Berkeley. And then you have Oxford, of course, with Emma Morris and Mackenzie Metner. They're back. And then, of course, you have Avondale. Too many questions around Avondale, even when they have Reagan Lawrence there. And then, of course, Troy Athens. They're going to struggle a little bit. So when you look at Athens, that'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. And then, of course, in the gold, Farmington's a favorite. I like what Farmington has. A lot of experience back for Coach Laura Guzman. Seahole's my 2nd best team in there, followed by Oak Park, Pontiac. Pontiac, I think, is going to struggle. Ferndale's going to have a struggle, and Ferndale U, of course, comes in the OAA. So that's my thoughts on the girls right now. When you look at the teams right now, clearly the top teams are West Bloomfield, Clarkston, Troy, Stony Creek, Adams, Groves, Lake Orion, in the conversation this year. Rochester and Berkeley in the conversation this year, in Farmington.
Well, that sounds like a comprehensive list, and again, he's got it on his blog. And you're also going to send us a version, correct?
I will send you guys a version of it. I will send it to you right now. I've already sent you a couple of them already. I will send you 2 more right now. All
right, so we're going to be posting all of those, all that detail on the breakdown of the basketball teams throughout the OAA. We're going to post that at orionontv.org under our news feed, and you can see it at Sammy's blog. Something else I'd like to, go ahead, Sarah, once again, Sam.
Oh, no, go ahead, Ian, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this will, with the restaurants opening up next week, that's still taking place, right? That's a positive sign. I think it's at 20% capacity plus other 25%. So other entities will be opening up. And the good news is ONTV as well will be then open again to our limited activity. So Sam will be back in the studio next week.
Finally, I'll be back in the studio.
I should have hit the breaking news button because we were talking about it and we decided, yep, that's the deal. So next Monday, we should be able to have Sam back in the studio sitting across from me, which is a lot more fun than over the phone. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a lot more, I mean, I don't have to use my phone a lot. You know what I mean?
That is more fun to chat face to face. And I like how some of our conversations develop just by, it's good to see another human being, dude. I miss you sitting in here.
I do too. I got a new car now, actually, which makes it really interesting. Yep.
All right.
So, Yep. So I just wanted to let you know about that.
Is that the Ferrari you had your eyes on?
Oh, no, it's actually a Turan I actually have.
Oh, very cool. So, yeah, we're going to have Sam back in the studio, and then we'll go over the guys' OAA basketball preview next week. Is that all right?
Yeah, that'd be good to go. That'd be good to know. You know what I mean? I'll go more in depth. We'll hopefully get some coaches interviews in coming back. Of course, it'd be great to bring everybody back into fruition.
Yeah, just like when we were delayed with football, it was great to have the coaches on. So if that is possible, we'd love to do that. So we're going to wrap it up here. Is anything for OAA Nation, Sam, before we say see you later for the day?
Well, stay strong. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. I mean, just stay positive. That's all I have to say, just stay positive.
Absolutely. Hey, we got to stay positive or we're going to have to get a lot of hankies out and dry those tears.
Yes.
All right, Sammy, we'll see you next week in person right here in the studio for OAA Now. See you, buddy.
Yep, thank you.
All right, that's it for this edition of OAA Now. OAA Now is produced by Sammy Taramina, and the views on this show are his and mine alone. On TV, we'll be back with in-person production starting the 1st of February. Also, the 1st of February, all that week will be our pledge drive for Oxford Orient Fish. $5,000 trying to raise for that fantastic organization to feed the hungry in our area. That's it for OAA Now. We'll see you next week. See ya!